All right, it's been a long time coming, but I'm about to put my top slide radius turner together. Here's a bench full of all the parts and some tools that we'll use to reassemble and run through what I've done. There's my original chicken scratchings showing what I'd planned to do. It has been modified, but essentially it is as planned. It's not completely disassembled, but I'm not going any further than this. Everything's been cleaned, it's all good to go. Hello, brilliant. The backbone of all of this is Smart and Brown, and I've tried to stay true to how they made things and the way the build quality as near as I can, but hey, you can't live up to what they did because it's amazing. This is the bottom part of the sled of a tailstock, which the tailstock rides on. We've made a clamp to go through it, just adapted the original Smart and Brown clamp obviously. We've taken a top slide, sliced the base off it, bolted it with cap heads to my sledge, cleaned up the bottom so it's nice and tidy, there's no burrs, the machine screws are sunk all out the way. We've pinned this what's now a cross side part so it's good and accurate. This is the for the lead screw. You've got a static part set in here held with a grub screw. Down goes your lead screw in, and by making an adjustment on the cant of this part, the two threads move relative to each other and tighten up on this. Reverse thread, that's going in. We're through at the far end, and I've got no forward backward backlash. We've got to fit the cross slide, what's now the cross slide, onto this base. We've got our post fitted for rotation. Down the back, the post can't spin because I put a grub screw. Coming out the bottom of where the bearing's going to sit, there's a hole so that any excess oil can drain. There will be a seal, so oil should drain through and out. The gib strips captured by a couple of pins, which are these two pins, and I'm going to have one locking cap head. You know, it's a modified cap head there, so I can lock off this when I need to. Good. I'm going to put the hand control, the hand wheel together first. It's a relatively simple piece, ha ha ha. For the mushroom head that goes in, up against that is a 45-degree pin. I can just feel that starting to push now. Up on the back side, got a little spring and a ball. Okay, so that puts tension on the ring. The ring wants to go that way round, and you have to hold it all together and make sure the pin, the ball doesn't come flying out. I'm going to tighten that on. Actually, I'm going to fly you through close up because there's so many tiny parts here. There are little protective brass bungs so that as you tighten down grub screws it doesn't damage threads. There's keys on the cogs to stop them spinning around. There's just a heap of tiny little bits that are all trying to get lost or make me forget where they're meant to go. I'm going to use some copper grease just to put things together with. Right, so a tiny little woodruff key sitting there. It has been cleaned, it has been polished, and the floor has been cleaned, so if I drop any of this I'm not going to lose it. Yep, that looks right. Okay, that one's going nowhere. That feels easier, that one. God, that first key was tight. I mean, this isn't slack. That one's tapped in now. It really is ridiculous how accurate these boys were. We'll just capture it with this nut at the top here. Oh, that's gone tight, 2 seconds. Okay, so I've got the nut on, quick bit of vice work there. In goes a little bit of a tiny little brass or copper bung, just protecting that thread. And a little grub screw. Snugged up. So that shaft's good. I'll put the screws in for the gib strip. It's a screw with a little locker there, and into the locker I've got a flat bit with a snick out of it. So that's my locking tool. Okay, gib screws in, ready. These little pins with the 45-degree on the end locate into the gib strip and these 2 slots, and pick up this gib strip. You can see this is the inside that comes up in. That one's essentially going to be used as an oil hole, and these 2, one's an oil hole and I think one's an access. I'll come back and I'll sort these out later. These will come back out, but just don't want to lose the blooming things. Right, so we're up under here now, and put some goop in there. Now, I did clean all of this, I can assure you. Got my copper hammer. I don't want to scuff that, so I'll just use a dolly. Put a dolly on it. Same up this end. Feels good. Then we'll inspect the inside. my pin's not poking through, so that's flipping brilliant. I'm hoping never to see the inside of this again. Ha ha ha. And now, look at the ding on that. This old top slide took a beating at some stage in its life. Encouragement. Off camera. I'm going to loosen up all of these screws, get it to slide and come back. Right, so that hasn't been on for some time now, but we're sliding backwards and forwards. The the dead blow's taken a bit of a beating, but there we go. I haven't even tightened up the Gibbs screws and nothing. There's no movement on that. It's just a stunning fit. And that's for a piece of kit that someone's absolutely massacred. Alright, so we know we're sliding well there. This is a little lock plate so that I can make a cover. I haven't made the cover yet. This goes on here. Then we have a driver underneath on a pinion connecting to the drive rod on the top. Thrust bearing on that end, which then presses up against here. Then we get a thrust bearing on yon end. In the meantime, this assembly drops into here and sits in a captured bush, because there's an oil hole that comes into the captured bush, which seems to line up with this oil hole here. So that's an oil hole. We'll put the bush in this way, and if it's wrong, we'll put it in the other way. I've got the light and I can see the light coming through that hole, so we're lined up with there. I'm going to push that, tighten up and just retain that bush. That's it there. I'll put my oil filler back on. So it's a simple bearing on this one, because all he's doing is rotating. This is the shaft that takes the thrust. So we're lining up there. Now what we're going to do is put the thrust bearing on this side. Now there's a preload nut which goes on the end here. So I hold that little brass plug in with goop, and then we'll run this down there. Let's see. So what you do is you work your rating nut down. So we've worked our rating nut down till it's sitting tight, and then by rotating slightly there, I've now got my grub screw visible through my slot. I'm just going to back that off a tiddle to there. That feels better, and lock that off. So now I've locked that off, I've got no backlash on this, we're still rotating. That feels better, and there's no real backlash. So we've now sorted that, we've got our drive underneath, that floats, but that's fine. Okay, next up, let's screw this into the main block. Oh, yeah, we're in there. Perfect. Right, there's a couple of pins that'll help line this up. And of course they're going to be tight. Okay, then we've got a couple of studs to go in as well. We're just tightening down the cap heads. Okay, that's coming along quite nicely now. There's a little bit of clearance there. The whole thing's sweet as a nut. So what I'm going to do, take this handle off and put the cover plate in. This hole here will need some sort of a plug. Now this cover is a press fit. So he's tapped in, pressed in there. So we're going to come back and put the handle on. Get in. Right, start building the top part. I want oil to be able to run through the whole unit. Got a thrust bearing on the bottom. We know that bearing is giving clearance of about 1/1000 of an inch. Right, so there's clearance there. The underside here has been relieved away. So I've got a nitrile O-ring to sit in this groove, and I'm going to fill the groove with a Teflon grease that is clean. So there's my O-ring sitting on. Okay, then we've got our upper bearing. And be generous with the oil. Here's my preload nut. It's going to go on there. I'll use the driver. It's quite a fine thread that we cut, so it will be quite a nice, give quite a nice rating. Okay, that's a bit better. I've put a nick where my grub screw comes out the side. I'm going to pick it up with an Allen key coming through in a minute. I've got a nick on my driver, so I know where the nick is where the key is. So if I bring my key in, Yes, dear Lord. Okay, well, my lock nut's staying in the same position, so that's not loosening off. So happy days. I'll take this off now. It's quite tight, and I'm going to fill this chamber with oil, which will slowly seep down with time. Be interesting to see how quick it goes. Oh, stupid man, it's coming out of the side here, because of course there's a hole. I've bunged that hole, my Allen key hole, with grease. So now we'll put a cover on here to stop rubbish falling down. That'll actually block that hole again a bit more. Again, that's another press fit. So my cover plate's on, that rotates with the top slide, but of course the lock nut is underneath there. Happy days. And we've just got a grub screw that we can take out to oil it, and it's also going to serve as a screw to extract this as well. Righty ho, we're getting somewhere now. We'll put the rotation handle in. Okay, so now what we've got to do is start putting the top slide together. Top slide. There's a little pin that comes through and engages this gib screw, gib strip. We've got lockers that lock this flange in place. So what we're going to do is, that goes that way around, that goes that way around, bit of oil. He goes to the top. This then sits there. Then the handle goes on. We'll pick up the nut up on the inside. Okay, so I've got to put my little plugs in from this end. What I'll do is I'll put my grub screws in so they don't fall out the back side. Get some chocolate on the go. All going in nicely, all being cleaned and everything. I'm going to put some chocolate in the back, and then I'm going to feed these in with tweezers. Other way up. So I'm just trying to put them back in the same way what they came out. Okay, so all my little grubs are back in. That's lining up and should go on. So now what I've got to do is get this whole assembly on the top up there, feed this in, and then this piece picks up, where are you? This piece. Top slide's not that great, is it? But hey, come on. It was the only one I got off eBay. Righto, so up at the bottom of this we've got a little rescue hole. I'll put a grub screw in it, and somewhere in the future when I need to rescue myself, I'll take the grub screw out and pull it out with a cap head, which is the same cap head that pulls this cover out here. Right, I've oiled that, tapped that down, I marked the underside of it to tell me when it was in the right orientation to pick up the lead screw. So now this, by my calculation, can sit on here yes, sorry, that got it. Okay, then I've got to bring the captive nut up from underneath. So, hanging off the table, on goes the lead screw for the top slide part. And this hole has to be up so that it will oil. That's good. Right, so my oil holder's lined up, and now I've got my two capturing screws. Okay, so this is great news because I didn't know if this was all going to line up. Okay, obviously what's going to happen, we're going to foul here, so what I'll have to do is kink this handle off. My handle here was fouling as I move the top slide backwards and forwards, so we'll put the bender on it. Happy days. We'll get this cover plate popped on. So that's just a cover plate to keep any tut out. It's about a sniff over the biting surface. It's not below anyway. So I can come across there. We've made a cover screw to go over the end of this, and it's probably going to be a faff to put on. We shall see. Yep, right, that's on. The old rubber gloves there, looking good. T-nut to go up on the top. Quite a snug fit there. So this is an original rear tool post off a Smart and Brown. It's funny actually because the original fit of the bolt through there's got a bit of wiggle room on it. So anyway, we've made up a bolt, a stud to go through there, and that's just, it's a snug fit. This nut's quite tight, it's over length, but I'm not sure yet how I'm going to use this, so I might need to slide it from side to side. We'll see. There's a couple of flats on there, so I can crunch that down with my spanner. Solid. So with that we have all the parts
together.
You can adjust the height of the tool by using this banana boat fixing thing. That's my locking nut that fits up into the detent of the clamping assembly for underneath the ways. Okay, so crazy amount of work. We're mounted up. We've got the sledge locked on the ways. It doesn't take much. Just a quick lift up. There's a collar under there. You can adjust the tension on the cam. That's solid. It's not going anywhere. Good. We can center this point of rotation to a center in the lathe, and then you're free to do what you want. Alright, there's going to be a fair bit of fiddling, but you get the idea. We've got something that can rotate. We've got a tool that we can bring in and out. We'll make a setting tool so we know exactly where center is, measure off center. We can adjust the table to get it in the right spot, and of course we can work off center as well. So fair deal of work, and let's hope this blooming actually does what it says on the can. There doesn't seem to be much slop in the system. Every little bit you have to try and make accurate, because every bit you get wrong just becomes counterproductive. And I will be using it with a collet chuck sticking out of the lathe to give me good clearance as we swing round, because with the standard chuck it gets tight very quick. All right, brilliant. Tool post, this part is actually from a Smart and Brown rear tool post holder. So you'd have one of those captured on your top side, you know, with a parting tool sitting in there. So that's your actual Smart and Brown. We took a tailstock, I bought a dodgy tailstock, and from the tailstock we took off the mounting slide. There's your original Smart and Brown stud. So this slide forms the base here.
Then we've taken an old top slide which was knuckled and chopped it.
I've reduced the height, so I've slammed it this depth here, which has got the dovetails on it. So that's been slammed there. Cut these ears off on either side. So decked it there, cut the ears off there. So I've sliced this part off, taken this part off, and essentially flipped it upside down. But of course the holes were back to front, so I had to re-drill all those. So that becomes that piece. This is decked flat all the way along. Up at this end here, where the tool post sat, we had to make a piece to sit in. It's screwed and glued and we've plugged the central holes. So I'll have a look at that on this piece. And that's a 2-start thread, that's why it lifts so quick. You can see I've tidied this one up, but that was all horrible like this. Okay, so on this piece I've decked it and I've fitted a piece to the correct height, and then I've decked the whole thing along. You know, if I took it all down to this level here, this would be very skinny. So I've filleted a piece in, it comes round to here, right up to here, and then come flat along the top and chop the top. Just as a reminder, when you fitted a piece here and you want to deck this piece, there's hardened, absolutely bell hard studs in here which you have to lift out. You've got to drive them out because that's where this pin locates. This is why it's the rapid index of this tool holder. So you come up, index up, index, and so on and so forth. Oh, it's quite fun, isn't it? What I've done here is this is half a turn out. There you go. That'll get it locking in the right spot. There you go. Daft, isn't it? So, just to give you some ideas, that was a sack weight with a bar across the top, and that piece came out of there, and this sack weight, we sliced the bottom off, and that piece lived in there. Boy, oh boy, what a job. Right, you know, you forget what you've done. You had to make a plug, didn't I, because I went wrong and all sorts of stuff. So, bottom line is the job's done. Let's have